All right, class is in fact back in session. This is our last episode for season 3 of Beyond the Venue podcast. And I am very excited to be joined by Professor Dr. Michael Sheridan today. How are you, Dr. Mike?
I am doing very, very well. I'm going to already start to interrupt. I've only been Dr. Mike for maybe 5 or 6 months now. Love every time I hear it. It rings true to my heart. I love it.
And we're going to talk all about the intense process it took for you to become Dr. Mike. And I cannot wait to hear your story. First off, listeners, I've known Dr. Mike for quite some time now. I believe that you were in the Tourism and Hospitality Management Master's program, and you would have graduated in the spring of 2009. Is that correct?
10.
Okay, 10. So we overlapped one another by a year because I started the program in the fall of 2009. And so we had a mutual friend in common, Jose, that we knew one another through. And if I'm not mistaken, after graduation, you stuck around and you were an adjunct for a while at STHM. What has your academic journey been like since the old, STHM master's program days?
So it was a little bit of a mix of a lot of different things. While I was in the master's program in STHM, I was still working for Visit Philadelphia, the city's tourism office, and I actually never had teaching on my radar until maybe about a year and a half after graduating. I was at an event with the then Associate Dean, Dean Monte, and he said, we're looking for an instructor to teach one of our classes, and if it works out well, it could turn into a full-time job. Would you be interested? And you know what? And see, I was nervous. I was reluctant. And I said, well, you know what? Can I just do one semester and to see how I like it? And he said, sure, we can do that as an adjunct. I think I started around August 20th of 2012. Within 2 months, I fell in love with it. And I said, you know what? I really want to go in this path. I found out, because at the worst, I thought, you know what? I'd be horrible at it. And at least I would get to see how maybe younger students learn today, how it's a little different than I learned. And like I said, I fell in love with it. They enjoyed me as an instructor because I got to share stories with them from the industry. Don't get me wrong, we all need to learn that theory and the research from the books, but I was able to provide a level of practical experience and exposure that the students truly loved.
What was that first class you were teaching?
What was that? I'm sorry?
What was that first class that you were teaching?
It was called Organization Management. So It was talking about working within an organization. And back then, the class is a little bit different now, but back then it was kind of an HR-related course, and how the tourism and hospitality industry differs so much when going through hiring, firing practices, and different elements like that. But it was an awesome experience. And then I stuck around.
That's so cool. And it's everything that you just said is very identical to the experience that I had this past spring. That, Dr. Torsney, my friend that I've known from grad school, that he, got his PhD in education, come adjunct, dip your toe in the water, see if you like it. So I had a different experience than you, only because I had the opportunity to teach fundamentals of beer at Drexel while I was working in the beer industry. So this was not my first time teaching undergraduate students, but I'm teaching team processes and leadership in organizations. So it's like, even though I'm a total nerd and I love this subject matter, going from hospitality to the College of Education was a little intimidating.
Right.
But luckily I had this podcast to kind of, give me my voice back, and, I can talk to a room where nobody's listening.
Oh yeah.
No problem. But I had that exact same kind of aha moment that you did as well, that I would realize in February, March, April, as the semester is going on, like, this is awesome. I love this. Okay, what does a PhD look like? Oh boy, it's going to be like, it's going to be, 6 months before I can even apply, then a whole another year. So, So that leads me to my next question for you is, when did you come to this realization that an EDD was right for you? So first off, can you tell our listeners a little bit about why an EDD as opposed to a PhD in education, and what were the motivational factors or your like aha moment of like, this is something I want to go after?
So I guess to start with your first question with regard to why an EDD over a PhD, the EDD, as I reviewed it, as I started to look at my options available, the EDD kind of felt more in line with delivering that practical element to the course or to the curriculum. That's one aspect of it. As much as I enjoy research, I enjoy the practical element of being in the classroom a little bit more. And I felt as if the EDD, especially the leadership track, provided that a little bit more than the research. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have to do your fair amount of research, but it's a little less research driven than the EDD, especially the leadership track. I did the leadership track because as much as I love being in the classroom, I do want to eventually move up that ladder of success. Being within, excuse me, the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management, in addition to being an instructor, I've also held a couple of administrative roles. For a year, I was the director of the program director of the tourism department. Um, for the past several years, I've been the academic director of the on-campus master's program. So what the EDD has also gave me the tools to do is to help advance the tourism and hospitality department, the master's degree, kind of to help bring it up to that next level.
Okay.
Um, Now, the larger question, what got me to the whole doctoral program and process? Um, like many of us, we always have that built-in quest, thirst, whatever you want to call it, for knowledge. And I'm glad, even though I got a little older, a lot older, but it still hasn't gone away. And I love that idea that I could still learn a little bit more. And also because by trade, I'm not an educator. I'm a hotel guy. I spent the
Yeah,
first 20 years of my career in hotels and tourism offices. So I didn't have that educational background, that pedagogical background that I needed. I wanted that. So the EDD helped me fill in those blanks so I could be a better instructor, so I could be a better administrator. And I feel as if it has filled those voids.
that's awesome. And I'm curious, because you were an instructor within the STHM school, what was your life like while you were going through the EDD program? Were you teaching still in STHM while taking classes at night? Were you what was your deal?
I guess my question to you is, what life? Um, I knew from the beginning that I would not be completing the EDD in any record time.
Okay.
I made sure that while I made sure I spent the necessary time on my studies, on the research that I needed to do, that I still had a Monday to Friday 9 to 5er that was paying for tuition, right?
Okay.
So I still had to make sure that I was not neglectful in my responsibilities as an instructor with an STHM. So at first I only took one course a semester, and I kind of had a 5 to 7 year plan,
Okay.
which oof, um, but then, you know, I was not teaching SDHM courses over the summer. So I thought, you know what, if I take
Bump up the courses.
ed
Yeah.
courses over the summer, I could eliminate some time. And I did. Um, you see up here, I had a full head of hair. And then one summer, I took data courses and stats over the summer, and oh
Oof.
my goodness! But you know what? It not only knocked off a year, it kind of helped really solidify that I did make the right choice. That I
Mhm.
was confident in my decision because I'm giving up a whole summer to literally be in a classroom, to be doing all these things that I wouldn't normally do but I still enjoyed it. I mean, who says that they enjoy stats too, right? But I did.
It's kind of the running joke between our friends and within our own household because my husband has his master's in statistics. So he was actually at Temple. We were in grad school at the same time, but did not start dating until after we both graduated. So kind of the running joke because I ended up working in the beer industry afterwards. It's like I'll keep beer in the fridge if you keep money in the bank account. Was our agreement, and the joke has been oh, this is going to break up your marriage if you're going to go to Bob for help. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That is what my professors are for. That
Hmm.
this is, I'm dipping my toe back in the water. I am taking my first, non-matriculated PhD level course. And so I'm taking Intro to Qualitative Research right now
Hmm.
with Dr. Brooks. And I am really loving the class.
Good.
I God bless Dr. Roll. Like I love Dr. Wesley Roll. He was one of my advisors for my thesis. I really loved working with him, but it I keep getting flashbacks to his applied research
Hmm.
course from grad school and like how different this
Yes, yes.
experience is, being in College of Ed versus, STHM and then at a higher level than just like the master's degree. It's been a very interesting experience. And so, walking into this, if it's a 5:30 to 8 o'clock class, I'm like, is she really going to keep us the whole time? And it's like, oh yes, in, in the PhD level classes,
Yeah.
they keep you the whole time. But I have found myself very engaged with the
Hmm.
course. That the way that she's teaching it, I'm really understanding. But at the same time, small class. There's only 9 of us, um, but just the way that she's teaching it and allowing us to like talk things out in groups. I don't feel like I'm sitting there staring at the clock. I am really like absorbing it like a sponge. And on top of it, I really appreciated the fact that our first assignment was due 2 weeks ago. It was annotated bibliography,
Hmm.
and so when we get to class so we meet on Tuesday nights, and so last Tuesday night she said, okay, if you got your grade, that means you did it correctly. If you have not gotten a grade yet, like here are a handful of things that we should review. So she said it wasn't just one of you, that I was seeing some reoccurring themes of issues within your annotated bibliography. So she gave us a do-over. It's she's like, I'm not going to tell you what you did wrong, but
Hmm.
I'm going to re-highlight some points that all of you need to think about and go back to your paper. So, I immediately went back last week and I was like, oh, okay, this is exactly what she said. Okay. So I even emailed her and I was like, Article 1 was problematic. And I see in the introduction that it's like, oh, this is a reflection of a study. It's not a study. And she's like, yep, that's the one. So
But you
I
got it
am
right. I mean,
yeah. And it's
yeah.
and it's like now I'm learning why this article was problematic because she told us in class, but she let me figure it out for myself. And so I'm just very appreciative of that approach and that grace to be able to get a do-over again for
Hmm.
my first class that I'm taking in 12 years. So
It's because it can be extremely intimidating, right?
it is. And what's nice is we have a very eclectic mix of folks in the classroom.
Mhm.
You can definitely, I myself am 40, and there are a third of us that are not in the program. Like we have not applied yet. We're all
Mhm.
taking it non matriculated. And then the other 6 are either EDD or PhD level students, but their ages and expertise, like it's such a variety,
It
like
is, it is.
huge variety. We even have someone who is already a full-time professor and has a doctorate, who is now getting his second PhD, who's in our class. And
Oh my goodness.
bravo, sir.
Exactly.
Bravo. And it goes back to your point of, thirsty for knowledge. Like if you are an academic, like you're just gonna keep on keeping on. So
Yeah, that's exactly it. Coincidentally, my path was similar to that. I was taking classes as a non-matric as well.
mm-hmm.
I then applied, and my first time, I got denied.
Did you
but it
get
didn't.
feedback as to why?
It was pretty blunt, and I remember it was. I met with. I shouldn't say his name because he still teaches there. He said to me, he said, "Your application was good, but there were a number that were better."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was a dose of reality, I think, because part of me thought, well, I work for the school, meaning Temple. I got good grades and things like that, but it was more about making sure that my goals were in line with or aligned with what the EDD was offering, and then it took me some time to come around, and it did, and very often we get in our heads and we're afraid to be. Sometimes we're too rigid, I should say, and we have to be somewhat flexible. And I was, and I took my three non-matric classes. I got all A's in them, reapplied, and I got in, and I was so happy for it. And also one thing that I wanted to add is, I teach undergraduate and I teach graduate level courses, and some of those students, they're there because they have to be. And I think what you said at the you're a little bit more engaged at the PhD level or the EDD level because you really want to be there. You're not there because nothing else to do or you have to do it. You're there making a conscious decision. And don't get me wrong, even if you love stats, nobody just takes stats for fun. Maybe your husband.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that takes stats for fun, um, or to hone your skills, but it's definitely it's gonna be a journey for sure.
Yes. Oh.
And, so were all of the classes that you took, were they all in the evening?
They were. They were because again, working, and then the only time where we started to get on weekends and nights, I mean, sorry, daytime, was when I really started to get close to the end, and I selected my chair and my committee for my dissertation. And I think that is an extremely crucial element that you choose somebody that you can work well with
Mhm.
because you work very, very, very closely with that individual. And it doesn't have to be rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies, but it has to be respect, and it has to be the willingness to do the work.
How did you, go about with your selection?
So it was actually an instructor that I had, that was preparing me for the defense class. It was Dr. Judith Stahl, and I liked her for a couple of reasons. Um, Sometimes I get in my own head and I start to doubt myself. And she was cool about saying things like, get out of your head. She's like, I know you can do this. You need to, step up. And so I like that about her. I like that she would call me out on certain things. And we just got along really well. And I knew that she would hold me to the fire when necessary. She would push me when necessary. And then, I love that our calls every week, even toward the end, it was three times a week. We would still manage to spend 5 minutes out of every call gossiping. So it showed me that she was also human and
Right.
and wanted me to succeed.
That's
It was,
awesome.
and it was tough during COVID.
I believe it, and that's what I was curious. So you just defended your dissertation this past May of
That
2022,
that's
and
correct.
so that's my next question is I'd love to hear all about your dissertation, and especially having to go through this process, during COVID, such a crazy time.
So, I remember being in Dr. Davis's class the one semester, and we got halfway through it just like everybody else, and then all of a sudden we switched to Zoom. And for many of us, whether you were an instructor or a student, it was a little bit of a challenge. I am grateful that the instructors within the College of Ed were receptive, that everybody's kind of Zoom level and comfort level was different. And then so they tried to work with you as best they possibly could. It was tough though. I mean, just like our students experienced some challenges, so did all of us. Um, I didn't I didn't let that stop me, and I'm thankful for that. As a matter of fact, I think even that invigorated me a bit more because there was even one semester that I took two classes at once. And again, every time I either doubled up or took classes over the summer, that just knocked things off at the end. So my initial goal was to be done my dissertation at 50. Okay, I wanted to be Dr. Sheridan at 50 years old. And then when all was said and done, because of summers, because of doubling up a little bit during COVID, I was able to finish it when I was 48. And that meant a great deal to me personally. Um, my dissertation, the topic of my dissertation was the effects of cyberbullying on the undergraduate population and the student success. The reason that that was extremely important to me was this might get a little political, and I apologize if it gets offensive to anyone at all, but we were just coming off of a couple of major elements in our lives. First and foremost, COVID, where we were now all online, when everything was cyber. And then we were also coming off of the presidential administration that there seemed to be some, in my opinion, a lot of bullying going on.
Yes,
Be-
absolutely.
because of that, it seemed as if a lot of people thought it was okay then. And then so I wanted to see how this was having an impact on student success. And unfortunately, I found out that it does exist. It exists so much that very often in various forms, it's accepted and it's like, oh, well, they're just saying that because they can hide behind the computer. And so I'm going to accept it because there's nothing else I could do. And that's actually a little disheartening. And so I looked at what we can do as administrators, as what we can do as educators to kind of help eliminate to some extent the effects of cyberbullying and even trying to eliminate some types of cyberbullying as well. It's something near and dear to my heart. I remember my qualitative interviews and just talking to students and just some of their experiences for me were disheartening
Hmm.
and they thought nothing of it because oh that's the time and era that we're in that it's just acceptable. So yeah.
That hasn't been so hard. And it's, and as a researcher, it's hard to kind of just take the facts in and hear the story. And, I hope that you were able to practice a lot of self-care throughout this research process.
I did, and I also, some of those students, of course, like you said, we have to take the emotion out of it, right? Because it's
And it's
data.
hard because and it's but it's real life and it's
It,
heartbreaking.
it, it is. It truly is. And so I did go back when I was all done, said and done with everything, and I had some conversations with students and to let them know that it doesn't have to be that way. And if it ever gets to be bad, we have a lot of resources already, especially with Temple and the Tuttleman services and the care team and everything else. And I wanted to remind them that those are out there. And then when I also sent my surveys out, I made sure that I included that information. Um, because you just don't know what someone is going through.
Do you find that your students do you think that they utilize Tuttleman? I've definitely even just this morning sent an email to a student that she said she was really struggling and I'm sorry I didn't get this assignment turned in and can I get an extension? And I was like, absolutely, I'm really sorry to hear what you're going through. Like, have you had a chance to utilize their services? So not like you need help, but just have you had a chance to look this over? Um because we have no idea if they're taking advantage of these free therapy.
That's exactly it. I would love to say that I think they take advantage of it, but I think in reality is I still think there's that idea of I can't ask for help or I don't want people to know I need help. Um, to me, that's scary as well. I want them to know it's okay. It is okay. And even, I made sure that during COVID, I had a couple of conversations with students to let them know that Not every day I was okay. Like I'll be honest, I try to have a lot of energy in the classroom, and sometimes it gets to be a challenge. And I told students, I went through a depression phase during COVID because I love social interaction. I love being in a room full of people, and I wasn't getting that, and I wasn't getting the energy from that. So I had to talk to somebody. For a while I was medicated, and it helped me, and it helped me talking about it and letting students know. I think it may have helped them a little bit.
I think so I did with my leadership course last semester, I did this empathy exercise, and I had all of the students write on an index card anonymously something that gives them fear or anxiety that they don't really speak about. And I wrote one myself as well, and then had them turn all the cards in, and I read them aloud for the class. And for them to be able to hear that all of them are going through the same thing,
Hmm.
will I ever be loved? What am I going to do after graduation? I'm worried about money. I'm worried about relationships. I'm, worried about everything.
Yes.
It was so much overlap. And so for them to be able to hear firsthand, I am not alone in my feelings, and just kind of continuously reminding that, you could definitely see a huge shift in the class. Cause it's really hard when we keep things to ourselves,
Hmm.
that even though, especially these last couple of years has been a collective trauma,
Right, right.
um, it's still, I feel like maybe especially at this point, we're probably talking about it less and less. That it's like as we're, now on our fourth booster shot and,
Got
living our
mine on
lives again.
Saturday.
How did you fare with it? Because my bivalent took me out for like 36 hours.
It
I
just
wasn't
it's
ready
just
for it.
it's a little bit of a challenge to raise, but other than that, I'm okay.
None of those flu-like symptoms.
No, I'm actually glad. I mean, I was a little blah yesterday, but it could have been this darn weather too.
Ah, it has been so miserable this weekend,
Mhm.
and I think it's supposed to swing back up into like the 70s for the second half of the week. So,
And then next week we'll be all sick. Do you know, it's odd to say, but if there's anything that came from COVID that's positive, for me at least, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. I remember there was a student when, again, I don't envy any of the administration that had to make up the rules while we were going through COVID. And at STHM, when we went to the online platform, the requirement was students had to keep their camera on and be engaged. And then I had a student, and I was thankful that she felt comfortable talking to me, and she said, "Can I keep my camera off?" And I was like, "Well, what's the deal?" And she said, "I don't have a home environment that allows me to keep my camera on." And she went into a little bit deeper, and you know, I don't think about that, right? And so the fact that she one felt comfortable, I was immediately happy that she felt comfortable in sharing that with me. But it also made me realize, holy crap, students are probably going through a lot more than ever I could ever imagine. I had a student, and this breaks my heart. He emailed me because it was an assignment due over the weekend, and he said, "Dr. Sheridan, I'm copying you, the care team, on this as well. My brother was shot in the face over the weekend." He said, "I have no documentation except a picture." He said, "I'm going to warn you, it's really bad." And I just like, when I was an undergraduate student, I just had to worry about, did I have enough beer money for the weekend? Right? Some of the things that some of these students have to worry about today, that breaks my heart.
I'm right there with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's um, I was an undergraduate at Drexel in the early aughts, and just so privileged to not have a care in the world
Hmm.
at that time. And you know it's insane to think about how much, I'm originally from Texas, and so I was constantly having to defend myself of like, I moved here by choice to Philadelphia, and I did not vote for Bush either time. He is not my president. And it's just insane to see how far our realities have come in the last 22 years.
Hmm.
um that just in retrospect, it's like, oh, that guy wasn't that bad. Like, we had
Yeah.
no idea what was coming.
They can't
Um,
write textbooks fast enough.
but the way that these kids have, with the technology, and I'm curious to see how undergraduate students are in other schools, but specifically with the kids that are in this adult and organizational development program, like they
Hmm.
are showing up very bravely, very vulnerably, like with courage. And it's very much the opposite of, I feel like, how things were in the classroom when I was, a marketing undergrad, that
Right,
just a
right.
very different mentality. How do you see the kids in STHM? Like, how are they showing up for class? Like, do you feel like they are of this completely different generation? Do you feel a lot of similarities?
Um, I I think now coming back this semester, the very first semester that we are maskless,
Mhm.
I feel, and I talked to some of my colleagues, that they're much more engaged than they
Mhm.
have been in the past, and I think because they miss that interaction, because they like the idea that I no longer have to do another damn Zoom. I get to interact with people. I can see their faces. I can see them smile. I don't. They're not mumbled and jumbled as much because of a mask. I think they're a bit more appreciative right now. Now, keep in mind, a lot of industries were hard hit by COVID. Tourism and hospitality industry in many aspects was decimated, right? I mean,
Mhm.
hotels close, restaurants close, and for them to be able to still stick out in the industry, I think it says a lot about them and their dedication.
And do you feel like with the hit that tourism took, do you feel like things are starting to kind of turn back around a little bit with enrollment at SDHM?
Enrollment, not yet. I see the industry coming back in full force. So
Mhm.
a couple of just, I mean, you probably know this, having an STHM master's. Um, our industry is generally dictated by the business sector, meaning business people travel all the time. Now, currently, that's not there.
Yep.
They are traveling, just not in the 2019 numbers.
Yep.
What is traveling is the leisure market.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
they are traveling because they've been stuck at home for the last couple of years. They just need to get out. So our the travel numbers are doing good. The economics behind it are not the best because leisure travelers are a little bit more price sensitive. Business traveler, if they have to travel, they don't care what it costs because somebody else is footing the bill. Leisure travelers have to be somewhat price conscious. So the numbers are there with regard to people traveling, just not the economics behind it. So the industry itself is doing okay. I do think we're not going to rebound from a student number for a little bit because right now students are heavily influenced by their parents, and their parents see, a year or two ago, how the industry was negatively impacted. So maybe they're persuading them, maybe you should get a general business degree, or maybe you should get a communications degree. um, so that's what we're currently seeing. But our numbers, we're okay. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see more students in the classroom, but I don't think we're there just yet.
That makes sense. I'll always be forever grateful to those 2 years at SCHM. I loved it, and it
Great, great.
was awesome to see so many friendly faces at Dr. Barber's celebration
Yes,
back in May. Um, what a her and Montag, just just wonderful people.
exactly. Aren't they? I love
So,
whenever I see them. It's just them.
and I think your answer to, why the EDD makes a lot of sense as to, why not a PhD in STHM. That
Hmm.
it sounds like your motivations were, completely different than like just to get, you know, another degree.
Right.
So,
Just add them to the list.
because that's something that I have to work on with my application. Telling my story and my goals.
Hmm.
And did you end up using a piece, like for the writing sample? Did you end up using something that you had written for class, or did you have to write like an op-ed article?
No, I was very fortunate that I actually had my thesis published, so I was able to use that because it wasn't published for a couple of years. So I was able. It was still within a time frame that I could use that. So it was a very cultivated piece. So I think that may have helped me a little bit.
So that's the thing. Dr. Ben Torsney, who brought me into education, he was able to help me get my master's thesis published in the
Awesome.
summer. So in the Journal of Leisure Studies.
Very cool. Congrats.
That was the summer of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it wouldn't necessarily. So even though it was published in 2021, and I did write new like implications based on some of the rework he did, I technically wrote it in 2011. So I feel like it's a little bit of a gray issue, but if I need to write something as it's connected to education, the idea that I'm toying around with right now, so emotional intelligence, I'm teaching in both classes,
Mm-hmm.
that, trying to connect, should we be teaching, I guess I believe that we should be teaching some sort of emotional intelligence
Of
at a
course.
very, very, very young age. That how different would this universe be if the entire world was emotionally intelligent? And how
Listen,
many?
I'm on board there. I actually teach about a week of EQ in my sales class
Okay.
because it is so relevant. We need to be more emotionally intelligent. I mean, come on, it'll be establish a greater connection with people.
And it comes back to, you know, one of the main topics I wanted to explore researching is toxic workplace culture, because that's something I experienced a lot working in the beer industry. And I think that it all circles back to, like, I think one of the root causes of toxic workplace culture is a lack of
Hmm.
emotional intelligence often. So yeah, I've got a lot of work to do on that in a short amount of time before December 1st. No problem, right?
No, there's nothing.
No problem whatsoever. Well, Dr. Mike, I would love to hear about your summer in Key West, because we had connected in May. And when I was hearing all about you had just defended your dissertation. And I'm like, oh my goodness, your entire story. I have to have you on my podcast. This is perfect. And when I'd reached out to you, you're like, so I'm going to be spending the summer in Key West and I don't really know about my internet connection. So, hit me up after the semester starts. Ugh,
Problems, right? I mean, come on.
love it. Love it. So, what brought you down there, and how did you spend your summer?
So, my partner and I have been together for 16 years, and it was our very, very first trip together in
Stop.
2006 to Key West, and
Oh,
then
oh,
we.
oh, okay. I
Oh
thought
no,
you
no,
meant
no.
it's like, oh my goodness.
And we've
Okay.
gone every single year since, and
Oh, nice.
it's our place away from home, and then so we've been looking to buy forever there, and it's just so cost prohibitive. But then in 2021, we saw an opportunity to buy a place, and we did, and it's been under renovation. And then finally, we were able to get to enjoy it this past summer. So we packed up the hoopty, put the dog in the car, and drove down the Key West and
Amazing.
spent our summer down there.
That's so nice.
It was very nice. I enjoyed it, especially after coming off of defending my dissertation
Oh, for
and
sure.
graduating. It was a much needed time of relaxation. It
And
was
how
hot.
does that work? Because if you're full time with STHM, how does that work for the summer? So were you like working remotely for the
So
summer?
yeah, so when it comes to the summer, we have options. We could actually, if we wanted to, just kind of take a very laid back approach and only attend meetings virtually and do other things. Or, again, depending on your level of how much you want to get involved, you could oversee interns. You can run classes if you want. Again, because I knew I was just finishing up my dissertation, I wanted to take a little bit of time for myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it was a couple of rough years.
That's a hard push to the finish.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's awesome.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.
And how is this semester going so far? Is it just kind of this huge shift now that You're not taking any classes anymore.
It is sometimes, like, for example, this past weekend, I went to a concert. Watched Hocus Pocus 2, and then I was like, shouldn't I be doing something? It's weird because, I still have grading to do and prep and things like that. But having a little bit more time to yourself, you get suspicious. I'm like, did I forget to do something?
You're like, I wasn't ready for all this free time. This is wonderful.
Exactly.
And that's I was experiencing the inverse because, I knew I was going to be teaching the same 2 classes this fall semester. And I knew I was going to be taking a class. And so I had a very like easy breezy summer and
Hmm.
tried to have a lot of time for myself, go to the city pool, binge watch
Yeah.
XYZ. So it's keeping me very busy and, keeping myself on like a rigorous schedule
Hmm.
because it used to be in the spring that my team processes class, we met Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 in the afternoon. Well, this semester it is asynchronous
Hmm.
for the first half. So we still meet in person on Thursdays, and I'm trying to record the next week's asynchronous like right after we finish class. So it's trying to keep up
Yeah.
and make sure they have enough time to do their thing, as well as all of the reading that is required for my
I know.
course. That has been a new addition is the amount of article
Yeah.
reading for this class. So I'm getting used to it, getting into the swing of things, but it's
And that'll really help.
oh yeah.
It'll really help when you're in the program, the time management skills that you're already making use of because you'll need them. And one really good thing about the program that I thoroughly enjoyed is they really push you to, when you're working on just about anything, you do it with your dissertation in mind. Like, you may not have at this point your entire dissertation flushed out in your head. You may not. But what they're trying to do, the instructors and the administrators, they're trying to support you so that if you do have an idea, when you do this bibliography, when you do this lit review, no matter what class, they kind of feed into this overall idea that you're working on. For example, when I started out, I wanted to do it on DRS, disability
Mhm.
accommodations for
Mhm.
students, and I realized, it wasn't my ultimate area of interest, but there was some overlap with this people that are experiencing DRS needs and cyberbullying, and then so I kind of went in that direction. So based on how they're building the classes within the College of Ed, it really helped me define my dissertation.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited
You should be.
to
It's
go through
awesome.
this. And I am very, very fortunate to continue to have a lot of resources of folks that I can reach out to at any time. So,
Awesome. And add me to that list.
you're already on the list. You're at the top. You're at the top. So what's next for you, Dr. Mike? You've got this semester. What do the next couple of years look like for you?
So for me, the next couple of years, as I said, we're struggling a little bit right now with enrollment.
Hmm.
So we have everybody here at STHM, specifically the tourism and hospitality side, really working with enrollment to kind of help with that. So wherever is needed, we step in and help. And perfect example on Friday, um, uh, Dr. Yang, another instructor within THM, and we met with an inner city high school group from DC and talking them about our program and the benefits of the program and benefits of Temple and STHM. So it's a lot of that to help build enrollment. Also working with a lot of committees within STHM just to ensure that our curriculum is where it needs to be, that it's matching the needs of the industry. Um, I'm working with some faculty on creating a gen ed um, still trying to be the best instructor that I can be. I'm teaching a class this semester that I've never taught before. It's not my area of specialty. I learned a great deal about the subject prior to even teaching it, so I love that. So just again, making sure that I'm quenching that thirst for additional knowledge. I think that's what's on the horizon for me, or at least for the immediate couple of years.
Staying very busy. Love it. Okay. Well, so Dr. Mike, this is the first time I'm asking this question this
Uh-oh.
season since it was so the format was very different with the first 7 episodes. But the one question that I ask all of my guests from season 1 and season 2, what is your favorite venue?
Goodness, my favorite venue. Okay. I'm a diehard Philadelphian, right? Born and raised in Philly, worked for the Philly Tourism Office. My favorite venue has to be the Barnes Foundation.
Oh, okay.
I think, first and foremost, I think it is such an underutilized, oh my gosh, amazing museum. I mean, a lot of people don't know it's $25 billion worth of artwork from a private collector, 4,000 pieces. It's just incredible. And I think there's just a lot of people that don't know that. And you get to walk in there and you literally get to stand 6 inches from all of these pieces. It's pretty cool. I'm very partial. I never get bored of going in there. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of amazing venues in and around the city, but I'm a bit partial to the Barnes.
Did you get a chance to go to any of their like courtyard garden parties that they were
Yes,
doing?
and they're the best.
Yes,
The
we
little
had a chance
waterfall
to go
after, it's just,
about a month ago and had a really
yeah,
nice time. Yeah,
they do it right. They really do.
yeah. And I'm like, and I did not get a chance to take advantage, but they were giving free tours of the museum
Hmm.
during that as well. I chose to stay outside.
You got to make it
But
back. You got to
I
make it
do,
back.
I do. It's on the list. Well, Dr. Mike, congratulations again on
Thank you.
defending your dissertation, and I hope we're switching this over to Dr. MG down the road.
Soon
And
enough. Soon enough.
again, before 50 as well on my end. So listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. Dr. Mike, thank you for joining us. Follow Beyond the Venue on Instagram and check out seasons 1, 2, and 3 that are all now streaming on your favorite podcast streaming platform. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good one. Thank you.
This is a Bivesta production.